In the year 2147, Earth was a broken place. The air was thick with pollution. Oceans were filled with plastic, and forests had been replaced by endless cities made of steel and concrete. People lived in fear, not just of nature's wrath, but also of powerful corporations that controlled everything. These companies ruled like kings, taking whatever they wanted without caring about who got hurt. One of these corporations was called Eos Corporation. It was famous, or infamous, for its experiments on humans and machines. They claimed their work would make life better, but most people knew the truth. Eos Corp cared only about money and power. Among those working for them was Hey Jun, a scientist who once believed he could change the world. But now, after years of seeing how cruel his bosses were, he felt empty inside. Hey Jun worked on something called Project Prometheus. Officially, it was supposed to help humans evolve by connecting their brains to computers. Unofficially, rumors said it was meant to control people's minds, turning them into obedient slaves. Hey Jun didn't know what to believe anymore. He spent long hours staring at screens full of data, wondering if anything good could come from his work. One evening, as Hey Jun walked home through dimly lit streets, someone bumped into him. A young woman handed him a small device before disappearing into the crowd. Confused, Hey Jun looked around but saw no sign of her. Back at his apartment, he examined the device. It was a memory stick containing files stolen from Eos Corp. The files revealed shocking secrets. Deep beneath Antarctica's ice, Eos Corp had found strange artifacts. These objects were ancient, older than any civilization ever known, and they gave off weird energy signals. Scientists at Eos Corp thought they could use this energy to power their machines, but there were warnings carved into the artifacts themselves. Words written in an unknown language warned against tampering with forces beyond human understanding. Curious and worried, Hey Jun went to talk to his boss, Dr. Min-Soo. Dr. Min-Soo was a cold man with sharp eyes and even sharper words. When Hey Jun asked about the artifacts, Dr. Min-Soo laughed. Warnings? Those are just superstitions, he said. We're not fools, Hey Jun. We'll unlock the secrets of these relics and reshape humanity. But Hey Jun wasn't convinced. That night, unable to sleep, he decided to find the person who had given him the memory stick. After searching online forums and hacking into secure networks, he finally tracked her down. Her name was Yoon-hee, and she was a hacker famous for exposing corporate crimes. She agreed to meet him in an abandoned subway station late at night. When Hey Jun arrived, Yoon-hee was already there, sitting cross-legged on the floor. She wore a hood pulled low over her face, hiding her features except for piercing eyes that seemed to see right through him. You've seen the files, she said without greeting. What do you plan to do? I don't know, admitted Hey Jun, but I can't keep working for them knowing what I know. Yoon-hee nodded. Good, because we need someone on the inside. Someone smart enough to figure out what they're really planning. She explained that Eos Corp wasn't just studying the artifacts. They were trying to activate them, and based on the patterns in the data, activating them might unleash something dangerous. Over the next few days, Hey Jun and Yoon-hee worked together secretly. They dug deeper into Eos Corp systems, uncovering more clues about the artifacts. One name kept appearing, Jun. She was an archaeologist who had studied similar relics years ago, but vanished after refusing to cooperate with Eos Corp. Finding Jun wasn't easy. She lived far away in a remote mountain village, avoiding contact with anyone connected to big corporations. When Hey Jun and Yoon-hee finally reached her, she was wary at first, but when they showed her the files, her expression changed. I hoped I'd never see these again, she muttered. Jun explained that the artifacts weren't tools or weapons. They were pieces of a seal, a barrier meant to keep something ancient trapped deep underground. Long ago, an advanced civilization had imprisoned this entity, calling it the Sleeper Beneath. According to legends, the Sleeper was a being of unimaginable power, capable of reshaping reality itself. The artifacts contained warnings to future generations. Do not disturb the Sleeper. Hearing this, Hey Jun felt a chill run down his spine. If Eos Corp succeeded in activating the artifacts, they wouldn't gain control. They'd awaken the Sleeper instead. And once freed, It would have no reason to spare humanity. Determined to stop them, the trio began making plans. Jun would stay at EOS Corp, feeding information to Yoon-hee and Ji-yoon. Together, they hoped to sabotage the project before it was too late. But time was running out. News reports spoke of strange tremors in Antarctica, and satellite images showed massive cracks forming near the excavation site. As they prepared for what lay ahead, Jun couldn't shake the feeling that they were playing with fire. Still, he knew one thing for sure. Doing nothing was not an option. Whatever happened next, they had to try. Listening in on conversations, Jun learned that EOS Corp was moments away from completing the activation sequence. They believed they could harness the Sleeper's power to dominate the world, blind to the danger they were unleashing. Desperate to buy more time, Jun planted a virus in their systems, causing temporary malfunctions that slowed their progress. Meanwhile, Yoon-hee and Ji-yoon discovered another relic hidden in a storage room. Unlike the central artifact, this one was smaller and covered in intricate carvings. Ji-yoon studied it closely, her hands trembling as she traced the symbols. "This is a key," she said finally. "It can either seal the Sleeper away or release it completely." Before they could decide what to do next, alarms blared throughout the facility. Someone had discovered their presence. Guards swarmed the halls, forcing the trio to flee. They regrouped near the exit, hearts pounding as they debated their next move. Time was running out, and they still didn't know how to stop the Sleeper. "We need to destroy the central artifact," Jun said firmly. "If we can break it, maybe we can disrupt the activation process. But if we fail," Yoon-hee countered, "we risk making things worse. We don't even know what will happen if we damage it." Jun hesitated, then spoke softly. "There's no other choice. If we don't try, humanity won't stand a chance." With heavy hearts, they agreed to attempt the destruction of the central artifact. Armed with improvised tools and sheer determination, they made their way back into the heart of the facility. The closer they got, the stronger the feeling of unease became. The air grew colder, almost suffocating, and faint whispers echoed in their ears, though no one was speaking. When they reached the chamber housing the central artifact, they froze. The object pulsed with an eerie light, its surface rippling as if it were breathing. Around it, machines hummed with energy, feeding power into the activation sequence. Jun realized they had only minutes before it was too late. Working quickly, Yoon-hee hacked into the control panel, trying to override the system. Ji-yoon used a smaller relic to align certain symbols with those on the central artifact, hoping to create a counter effect. Jun kept watch, ready to fend off anyone who tried to stop them. Just as Yoon-hee managed to disable part of the sequence, the doors burst open. Soldiers stormed in, weapons raised. A fierce struggle ensued, with Jun fighting to protect his friends while Yoon-hee and Ji-yoon continued their work. Despite the chaos, they remained focused, knowing failure meant doom for everyone. Finally, with seconds to spare, Jun activated the smaller relic. It emitted a blinding flash of light, disrupting the connection between the machines and the central artifact. The pulsing stopped, and the chamber fell silent. For a moment, everything seemed calm, but then the ground began to shake violently. Cracks spread across the walls and ceiling, and a deep, guttural roar echoed from below. Something immense stirred beneath the ice, its presence radiating anger and hunger. The Sleeper had awakened. Jun, Yoon-hee, and Ji-yoon worked tirelessly to piece together the puzzle of the ancient artifacts. Each day brought new discoveries and new fears. Ji-yoon spent hours poring over fragments of text carved into the relics. The language was unlike anything she had ever seen before, but her years of study allowed her to decipher bits and pieces. What she found chilled her to the bone. "The Sleeper beneath," she whispered one evening as they gathered in a small, dimly lit room. "It's not just a name, it's a warning. These artifacts were created by an ancient civilization that fought against the Sleeper. They sealed it away deep beneath the earth, hoping it would never awaken again." Yoon-hee leaned forward, her sharp eyes narrowing. "So EOS Corp isn't just messing with some old rocks. They're poking at something they don't understand. Something dangerous." Jun nodded grimly. "And they're doing it fast. Every report I get from inside shows they're close to activating the network of artifacts. If they succeed, we might not have much time left. The trio knew they needed to act quickly. Their plan was risky. Infiltrate EOS Corp's main facility in Antarctica, sabotage the activation process, and hopefully prevent the sleeper from awakening. But getting there wouldn't be easy. EOS Corp had turned the excavation site into a fortress, guarded by armed soldiers and surveillance drones. Even worse, the corporation's leaders seemed obsessed with their goal, ignoring any warnings or risks. As they prepared for their journey, strange things began happening around the world. Earthquakes shook cities far from Antarctica, causing buildings to collapse and panic to spread. In some places, the ground cracked open, releasing bursts of energy that fried electronics and left people disoriented. Weather patterns shifted unpredictably, with storms raging where none should exist. News outlets struggled to explain what was going on, but Yoon Hee, and June knew the truth. The sleeper was stirring. One night, while reviewing satellite images of the Antarctic site, Yoon Hee noticed something alarming. Massive fissures had appeared in the ice, spreading outward like cracks in glass. At the center of it all stood the excavation site, glowing faintly under the polar sky. "It's already starting," she said, pointing at the screen. "If we don't stop them soon, it'll be too late." Their sense of urgency grew stronger with each passing day. Finally, after weeks of preparation, they set out for Antarctica. Traveling secretly, they avoided major cities and relied on smugglers to transport them across borders. Along the way, they encountered others fleeing the chaos caused by the sleeper's awakening. Entire towns lay abandoned, their streets littered with belongings left behind in haste. Survivors spoke of nightmares come to life, twisted creatures emerging from shadows, voices whispering in empty rooms, and skies filled with unnatural colors. By the time they reached the edge of the frozen continent, the world felt like it was unraveling. The air was bitterly cold, and the landscape stretched endlessly in every direction, white and desolate. As they approached the excavation site, they saw the scale of EOS Corp's operation. Towering cranes loomed over the ice, surrounded by rows of prefabricated buildings. Soldiers patrolled the perimeter, their weapons glinting in the weak sunlight. Getting inside wouldn't be easy, but Yoon Hee had a plan. Using her hacking skills, she disabled part of the security system long enough for them to slip through unnoticed. Once inside, they split up. June headed toward the main control room to gather intel, while Yoon Hee and June searched for clues about how to deactivate the artifact network. June moved cautiously through the maze-like corridors, avoiding guards and cameras. When he reached the control room, he found it buzzing with activity. Scientists huddled around monitors, shouting orders and frantically typing commands. On one screen, he saw a live feed of the central artifact, a massive, pulsating object embedded in the ice. Its surface shimmered with strange symbols that shifted and changed as though alive. The roar that echoed through the chamber was deafening, shaking the very bones of everyone inside. Dust and chunks of ice rained down from the ceiling as cracks spread rapidly across the walls. The central artifact, now silent and dark, seemed to pulse faintly, as though alive but wounded. June, Yoon Hee, and June exchanged terrified glances. They had disrupted the activation sequence, but it wasn't enough. The sleeper had awakened. "We need to get out of here." Yoon Hee shouted over the chaos, her voice barely audible above the rumbling ground. She grabbed June's arm, pulling her toward the exit, while June covered their retreat, fending off soldiers who were too stunned to react at first. But soon, the guards snapped out of their shock and began firing wildly, adding to the pandemonium. As they ran through the collapsing facility, strange things started happening around them. Shadows twisted unnaturally on the walls, forming shapes that shouldn't exist, elongated limbs, gaping mouths, and glowing eyes. The air grew colder, biting into their skin like needles. Whispers filled their ears, voices speaking in languages none of them understood. It felt as though the sleeper itself was watching them, testing them. June's mind raced with guilt and fear. He had helped create this nightmare, even if unintentionally. Every step he took fell heavier, weighed down by the knowledge that his work for EOS Corp had brought humanity to the brink of destruction. Yet he couldn't stop now. If they survived, maybe, just maybe, They could fix what had been broken. They finally reached the surface, gasping for breath as they emerged into the icy wasteland. Behind them, the facility crumbled into the earth, swallowed by fissures that widened with each passing second. Columns of black smoke rose into the crimson sky, mingling with flashes of lightning that illuminated the desolate landscape. Antarctica no longer felt like a frozen desert. It felt like the edge of hell, but there was no time to rest. The trio pressed onward, heading toward their hidden transport, a small hovercraft designed for extreme conditions. Along the way, they encountered survivors fleeing the site, workers, scientists, and soldiers alike, all desperate to escape the unfolding catastrophe. Some begged for help, while others attacked anyone who crossed their path, driven mad by fear and exposure to the sleepers' influence. One such group ambushed them near a ridge. 3 men, their faces pale and eyes wild, lunged at them with makeshift weapons. Jun fought back instinctively, using whatever he could find to defend himself. Yoon-hee hacked into a nearby drone, turning it against the attackers, while June stayed behind them, clutching the smaller relic tightly. When the fight ended, she whispered, "We can't trust anyone anymore, not even ourselves." By the time they reached the hovercraft, exhaustion and despair had taken hold. Their hands trembled as they climbed aboard, and their breaths came in ragged gasps. As the craft lifted off the ground, they looked back at the devastation below. The once pristine ice was now scarred with massive cracks, glowing faintly with unnatural light. In the distance, something massive shifted beneath the surface, its form indistinct but unmistakably alive. The journey away from Antarctica was tense and silent. None of them spoke much, lost in their own thoughts. Jun stared out the window, wondering how many lives had already been lost because of his choices. Yoon-hee focused on repairing the hovercraft's damage systems, her fingers moving mechanically despite her fatigue. June clutched the smaller relic, muttering prayers under her breath, though whether the gods or ancient beings, she couldn't say. When they finally landed in South America, they found a world already beginning to fall apart. News reports painted a grim picture. Earthquakes tearing cities apart, oceans boiling where the sleepers' energy seeped into the water, and millions vanishing without explanation. Governments struggled to maintain order, but panic spread faster than any response team could contain it. People turned on one another, blaming neighbors, strangers, and leaders for the horrors unfolding around them. Jun, Yoon-hee, and June sought refuge in an abandoned research station nestled deep in the Andes Mountains. It was remote, isolated, and stocked with supplies left behind by scientists who had fled when the earthquakes began. They regrouped and tried to make sense of what they had learned so far. June spent hours studying the smaller relic, comparing its symbols to those carved into the central artifact. Slowly, she began to understand more about its purpose. "This isn't just a key," she said one evening, her voice trembling with awe and dread. "It's a map. It shows us how to re-imprison the sleeper, but only if we can reach the central hub in Antarctica." Yoon-hee frowned. "You mean go back there? That place is probably crawling with those things now." "It's our only chance," June insisted. "If we don't try, everything will be lost. Humanity won't survive much longer under the sleeper's influence." June nodded reluctantly. "She's right. We caused this mess. We have to fix it." Over the next few days, they prepared for the perilous return trip. They scavenged equipment from nearby ruins, fortified the hovercraft, and mapped out a safer route to avoid areas most affected by the sleeper's awakening. Tensions flared between them as the reality of their mission sank in. Jun wrestled with guilt, replaying every mistake he'd made in his career. Yoon-hee struggled with her growing feelings for him, knowing they might not survive long enough to act on them. June, haunted by memories of losing her family during earlier corporate disasters, channeled her grief into determination, vowing to see this through no matter the cost. Finally, the day came to leave. As they boarded the hovercraft, they shared a moment of silence, each silently saying goodbye to the lives they once knew. Then, with a deep breath, Jun activated the engines, and they soared into the sky, heading back toward the heart of the apocalypse. The journey south was harrowing. Strange storms battered the craft, sending bolts of lightning arcing dangerously close. Below, the land was unrecognizable. Forests burned, Rivers dried up and entire cities lay in ruins. At one point, they flew over a coastal town where the ocean had receded, revealing ships stranded on cracked seabeds. Moments later, a massive wave surged inland, obliterating everything in its path. They also encountered remnants of humanity, some friendly, offering supplies or information, others hostile, attacking on sight. One encounter left a lasting impression. A group of children huddled together in the ruins of a school, their faces gaunt and hollow. When Jun offered them food, one boy looked up and asked, "Why are you still trying? Isn't it over?" His words haunted Jun, fueling his resolve to keep fighting. If nothing else, he owed it to these children, and to everyone else, to try. Eventually, they reached the outskirts of Antarctica again. The landscape was even worse than before, ravaged by constant quakes and eruptions of energy. The skies glowed an eerie red, casting long shadows across the snow. As they approached the excavation site, they saw the central hub, a towering structure pulsating with otherworldly light. It was both beautiful and terrifying, a beacon calling them closer. Landing a safe distance away, they geared up for the final push. Weapons, tools, and the smaller relic were carefully packed. They knew this might be their last stand, but they also knew failure wasn't an option. Taking a deep breath, they stepped out into the cold, ready to face whatever awaited them inside the hub. The central hub loomed ahead, its jagged silhouette piercing the crimson sky. The structure pulsed with an unnatural light, casting eerie shadows across the snow-covered ground. Jun, Yoonhee, and Jiun moved cautiously toward it, their breaths forming clouds in the freezing air. Each step felt heavier than the last, as though the weight of the world rested on their shoulders, and perhaps it did. As they approached, they noticed strange shapes moving around the hub. At first, they thought they were soldiers or drones, but as they drew closer, they realized these figures weren't human. Twisted and malformed, they resembled creatures born from nightmares, part machine, part flesh, and entirely alien. Their movements were jerky yet deliberate, as if controlled by some unseen force. These were manifestations of the sleeper's influence, creations born from corrupted matter. "This is bad," Yoonhee muttered under her breath, clutching a makeshift weapon tighter. "We can't fight all of them." Jun nodded grimly. "We'll have to be smart about this. Stick together and stay quiet." He glanced at June, who held the smaller relic close to her chest. Her face was pale, but her eyes burned with determination. Whatever happened next, she wouldn't falter. They circled the perimeter of the hub, searching for a way inside. Most entrances were blocked by debris or guarded by the biomechanical creatures. Finally, they found a small maintenance hatch partially hidden beneath a pile of snow. Working quickly, they cleared the entrance and slipped inside, closing the hatch behind them. The interior of the hub was even more unsettling than the outside. The walls shimmered faintly, as though alive, and the air hummed with energy. Strange symbols floated in midair, shifting and rearranging themselves like living code. It was clear that the sleeper's presence permeated every inch of the facility. Their goal was simple: reach the control room and use the smaller relic to re-imprison the sleeper. But getting there would require navigating through corridors teeming with danger. Every step brought new challenges: traps set by EOS Corp, malfunctioning security systems, and more of those twisted creatures lurking in the shadows. At one point, they stumbled into a large chamber filled with monitors and holographic displays. In the center stood Dr. Min-Soo, his once calm demeanor replaced by frantic desperation. He was surrounded by equipment, wires trailing from his arms into a massive console connected to the central artifact. His eyes darted wildly between screens showing streams of data and images of the sleeper's growing influence worldwide. "Dr. Min-Soo," Jun called out, stepping forward. "What are you doing?" Min-Soo turned slowly, his expression hollow. "Trying to reason with it," he said, his voice trembling. "It's not mindless. It's intelligent. If I can just communicate." His words trailed off as he gestured toward the screens. One showed a swirling mass of darkness, pulsating rhythmically like a heartbeat. Another displayed fragmented messages written in the same ancient language carved into the relics. Jiun stepped forward, holding up the smaller relic. You're wrong, she said firmly. This isn't something you can negotiate with. It doesn't care about us or anything else. All it wants is destruction. Min-Su shook his head, refusing to listen. No, you don't understand. It's offering me power, knowledge beyond imagining. I can save humanity. Before anyone could stop him, Min-Su activated the console, sending a surge of energy coursing through the room. The monitors flickered violently, and the symbols in the air began to spin faster, forming intricate patterns. A low, guttural growl echoed through the chamber, growing louder with each passing second. Suddenly, the console exploded, sending shards of metal flying. Min-Su collapsed to the floor, convulsing as black tendrils snaked out of the artifact and wrapped around him. His screams echoed through the chamber as his body dissolved into ash, leaving nothing behind but a charred outline. Horrified, the trio backed away, realizing they had no time to waste. The sleeper was growing stronger, feeding on Min-Su's arrogance and despair. They needed to act fast. Continuing deeper into the hub, they encountered waves of biomechanical creatures. Jun fought valiantly, using whatever weapons he could find to hold them off while Yoon-hee hacked into nearby systems to disable traps and barriers. Jun focused on deciphering the symbols floating in the air, piecing together the final steps needed to activate the ritual. Finally, they reached the control room, a vast chamber dominated by the central artifact. It hovered in the center, suspended by beams of light that pulsed erratically. Around it, machines whirred and clicked, feeding energy into the activation process. The air crackled with electricity, making their hair stand on end. "This is it," June said, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. "I need you two to protect me while I finish the ritual." Without hesitation, Jun and Yoon-hee took defensive positions, fending off attackers as June worked. She placed the smaller relic on a pedestal near the central artifact and began aligning its symbols with those floating in the air. Each match caused the room to shake violently, releasing bursts of energy that lit up the chamber like lightning. Time seemed to slow as June completed the final alignment. The smaller relic glowed brightly, emitting a beam of light that connected with the central artifact. For a moment, everything went still. The humming stopped, the symbols froze, and the creatures ceased their attacks. Then, with a deafening roar, the sleeper responded. The central artifact cracked open, releasing a wave of dark energy that knocked everyone off their feet. Shadows swirled around the room, forming a towering figure that loomed over them. Its form shifted constantly, impossible to look at directly without feeling dizzy. Eyes like burning stars locked onto them, radiating malice and hunger. "You dare defy me?" The sleeper's voice boomed, shaking the very foundation of the hub. "Foolish mortals, your kind has always sought to control what it cannot comprehend." Jun struggled to his feet, shielding June with his body. "We're not afraid of you," he shouted, his voice trembling but defiant. "You won't win." The sleeper laughed, a sound that chilled him to the bone. "Win? I do not win. I reshape. You will become part of my design, as all things must." Before it could act, June activated the containment protocol. The smaller relic emitted a blinding flash of light, forcing the sleeper to recoil. Chains of golden energy erupted from the floor, wrapping around the entity and dragging it backward. It let out a furious scream, thrashing against its bonds as the room trembled violently. "It's working!" June cried, tears streaming down her face. "Keep it distracted." Jun and Yoon-hee fought desperately, holding back the remaining creatures as the ritual reached its climax. With one final surge of energy, the chains pulled the sleeper back into the void, sealing it away once more. The central artifact shattered, releasing a shockwave that knocked them unconscious. When they awoke, the hub was silent. The machines lay dormant, and the oppressive atmosphere had lifted. Exhausted but alive, they helped each other to their feet, knowing their work wasn't done yet. The facility was destabilizing, and they needed to escape before it collapsed completely. As they ran to the crumbling corridors, hope flickered faintly in their hearts. They had succeeded in re-imprisoning the sleeper, but at great cost. The world above was still broken, and humanity's future remained uncertain. Yet amidst the despair, there was a glimmer of possibility. Perhaps Just perhaps, people would learn from this catastrophe and rebuild something better. Reaching the surface, they climbed aboard the hovercraft and soared into the sky, leaving the ruins of the hub behind. Below, the ice sealed shut, burying the remnants of the sleeper deep beneath the earth once more. The hovercraft soared above the desolate Antarctic landscape, its engines straining against the weight of the damaged vessel. Jun gripped the controls tightly, his knuckles white as he guided them away from the collapsing hub. Behind them, the ground crumbled and sank into the earth, swallowing the remnants of EO's corpse operation. And the sleeper, forever. The skies glowed an eerie red, casting long shadows across the snow-covered plains below. It was a scene straight out of a nightmare, but they had survived. Uni sat in the back seat, her head resting against the cold metal wall, staring blankly at the horizon. Her hands trembled slightly as she clutched a small device containing data stolen from the hub. She knew it was important. They might need it to warn others about what had happened, but right now, all she could think about was how close they had come to death. June, meanwhile, stared down at the smaller relic cradled in her lap. Its glow had faded, leaving behind only faint etchings that seemed almost ordinary now. Yet she couldn't shake the feeling that its power still lingered, watching, waiting. As they flew further north, the devastation became more apparent. Cities lay in ruins, their once proud skylines reduced to jagged skeletons of steel and glass. Rivers ran dry or boiled under strange energies, while forests burned endlessly, choking the air with smoke. Survivors huddled together in makeshift camps, scavenging for food and shelter amidst the wreckage. Some groups were hostile, attacking anyone who came near, while others simply stared blankly into space, their minds broken by fear and loss. Jun, Yoonhee, and Jiun made several stops along the way, sharing supplies and offering whatever help they could. But each encounter left them heavier, burdened by the sheer scale of destruction they witnessed. Entire populations had vanished without explanation, some swallowed by sinkholes, others consumed by the sleeper's influence. Those who remained struggled to survive, their hope fading with each passing day. One evening, as they rested in the ruins of a small coastal town, Jun broke the silence. "Do you think we did the right thing?" he asked quietly, his voice barely audible over the crackling fire they'd built. "I mean, we stopped the sleeper, but look at what's left." Jiun looked up, her eyes weary but resolute. "We didn't have a choice," she said softly. "If we hadn't acted, everything would have been lost. Humanity wouldn't stand a chance." Yoonhee nodded slowly, poking at the fire with a stick. "She's right. We did what we had to do. But now what happens next?" No one answered immediately. They all knew the road ahead would be long and difficult. The world wasn't just broken. It was fractured, tore apart by greed, arrogance, and forces beyond comprehension. Rebuilding wouldn't happen overnight, or even in their lifetimes. But perhaps, just perhaps, humanity could learn from this catastrophe. After days of travel, they reached South Korea, where Jiun suggested they part ways. "I'll go back to teaching," she said firmly. "People need to know the truth, not just about the sleeper, but about themselves. Maybe if we pass down these stories, future generations won't make the same mistakes." Jun understood her decision, but felt a pang of sadness. He respected Jiun deeply, not just for her knowledge, but for her unwavering determination. Without her, they never would have succeeded. Still, he knew she needed time to heal, to process everything they'd been through. Months passed, then years. Slowly, cautiously, people began to rebuild. Tribes formed alliances, pooling resources and sharing knowledge. Gardens sprouted in the ruins of cities, tended by hands determined to nurture life rather than destroy it. Stories of the sleeper spread, told around campfires, and recorded in journals passed down through generations. These tales serve as reminders, not just of the danger posed by unchecked ambition, but of the resilience and courage shown by those who fought to protect humanity. Jun spent his days experimenting with eco-friendly solutions, driven by guilt and redemption. His work inspired others, sparking movements aimed at healing the planet. Yoonhee became a legend among hackers, known for exposing corruption and safeguarding information vital to survival. And Jiun? She returned to her students, weaving ancient myths with modern lessons, ensuring that the warnings carved into stone millennia ago would never be forgotten. Though they rarely saw each other again, their paths continued to cross indirectly, a breakthrough in renewable energy traced back to He-Jun's research, a leak exposing corporate exploitation linked to Yoon-hee's efforts. A child inspired by Jun's teachings grew up to lead a movement for peace and unity. In the end, the Sleeper's awakening served as both a curse and a catalyst. It shattered the old world, yes, but also forced humanity to confront its flaws and strive for something better. Freed from the chains of corporate tyranny and united by shared suffering, people rediscovered compassion, cooperation, and resilience. And so, though scars remained, hope flickered faintly in the hearts of survivors. Perhaps one day, humanity would prove itself worthy, not just of wielding great truths responsibly, but thriving in harmony with the world around them.